Good morning, everyone, and welcome and thank you for joining our virtual panel session. Moving forward and reaching Black leaders in municipal government. My name is Adrienne Billing-Smith. I'm the equity coordinator for the town of West Hartford, and I will be moderating today's discussion. First, I'd like to take a moment and thank the panelists for agreeing to be a part of this wonderful program. I'd also like to thank West Hartford Community Interactive for hosting our panel. And finally, a special thank you to Karen Taylor, Director of Equity and Opportunity for the City of Hartford, for helping put together and plan today's panel. Just a reminder, this is about a 45-minute discussion between our panelists, and we'll be taking questions at the end. So please make sure that you utilize the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions. I'd like to take a moment and introduce our panelists for today. We have a wonderful panel talking about just municipal government, leadership, hopes and expectations in their journey. So today we have Tyron Harris, the Chief Diversity and Human Resources Officer for the town of East Hartford, Latoya Fernandez, the Chief Diversity Officer for the town of Norwalk, and also a Board of Ed member for the town of West Hartford, James May, Associate City Attorney for the City of Bridgeport. We also have Ebony Jackson Shaheed, the Director of Health and Human Services for the City of Hartford, and Karima Mickens, the Town of Hamden's Town Clerk. So I'd like to say thank you for coming to today's panel. And I was at first going to go over the bios, but as we discussed before, I think it's better to hear it from the people who are here. So I wanted to start off with Tyron and go tell us a little bit about yourself, your professional journey, and how you landed in municipal government.
Yeah, so thank you first for having me this morning to shed some light about my experience and background here. But yeah, so I started off in the private sector. I was an HR intern for the New York Times, and then moved to Connecticut. Was part of the employee relations team for the Hartford, and then Target, or some people call it Target, started expanding their stores in New England. So I had an opportunity to become executive team leader overseeing human resources for a number of our stores, and also became a district employee relations expert. And then I kind of branched out and wanted to do some more consulting, and kind of got burned out in the retail world. I love the experience. I love the leadership skills that it brought me, and it prepared me for the current role I am now as a chief diversity officer, and HR director for the town of East Hartford. But from that, did some consulting work, and then was a regional HR business partner for ADP. Then I was the head of HR for the Wadsworth, and then so was changing leadership here in the town of East Hartford. And at the time, former Mayor Michael P. Walsh asked me to join his team as the DEI and HR director for the town of East Hartford. He's seen that the skill sets that I've done as chairman of the East Hartford School Board, and just some overall with the leadership expectations that he was looking for in leaders as he's building out his new cabinet. He felt like I was going to be that last little puzzle that he needed to kind of round out and kind of foster employee-centric culture here in the town of East Hartford.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. How about Miss Ebony Jackson Shaheed? Tell us about your story and your journey.
Hi, thank you again for inviting me. I really appreciate this opportunity. So I actually had many hats before I landed here. I think sometimes, people, they go to school and then for one thing, and that's what they want to do. But I think that my multiple hats led me to where I am today. And if I hadn't had all of those experiences and all those professions, then I would not have been able to handle, a job such as this. So I started out in education, and I was a health education teacher. And I really enjoyed that. I think I probably would have, stayed in education, but I think there were, some calls for other things. And then I moved on to do community development and health policy in New York City. And I honestly, I really enjoyed those opportunities because I think that's probably the first time where I really was working with very diverse populations. New York City is like a mecca for diversity. So I really enjoyed that opportunity. And then I came back home. It was time to purchase, purchase property. So my husband and I came back to Connecticut. And I, got into behavior health. And so through behavior health, I got an opportunity to do some research with the VA in West Haven, and it led me to my postgraduate fellowship at Yale. And so there I became a researcher, and I ended up doing a specialty in neurology and epilepsy. And so I think those skills as, a researcher, and then really, being an epidemiologist, was right on time when COVID hit. And so that really is what led me to my current opportunity, is really there was a need for epidemiologists during COVID. And so, here I am.
Awesome. That's an awesome story. Thank you. Latoya, tell us about your journey, your professional journey, and how you ended up in municipal government.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be on this panel. It's an honor to be in shared space with Black leaders. I got a very non-traditional start too, coming from education and activism. If you would have told me when I started teaching that I was going to be doing DEI work, within the municipality, I would have been like, what? There's no way. But my advocacy really started in the classroom with students, and bringing in the cultural awareness and competency into my classroom, using the restorative justice framework. I felt, that work around building with communities, meeting people where they're at, creating spaces for healing and resilience. I really believe and still believe that that's the way to equity. And so I moved up the ranks as a teacher, became an administrator, and replaced the discipline system within my school with that restorative justice framework, having DEI kind of be the driving force of that work. And then later a community activist, and the wake of everything that happened during the pandemic, and us losing our brother George Floyd, among many other Black community members, I felt called to meet our young people on the streets in the movement, and to really be a leader, to show them how to organize and how to sit with elected officials at the table and remind them of who they work for, and create a collaboration with the community, and have initiatives that are led by the community, really with municipality as that just the support. And so I got to do some great work in San Jose, California with the mayor, starting a number of commissions that are still standing there. A lot of those young people ran for office, and they're the city council members there now. They're the board of ed reps there now. And then I knew it was time for me to return back home to Connecticut and bring these skills to the place that raised me. So when I had the opportunity to, take the role in Norwalk, I just thought, like, wow, this is what it is. We got to start the work at home. And I have a very non-traditional approach to the DEI work, with bringing the community organizing and the restorative justice healing framework into that space. So here I am, and really excited to continue the work. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So refreshing to hear, that kind of background that you have and bring it into municipal government. Attorney James May, can you tell us about your journey?
Yes, and yes, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this panel. So, yeah, I've been at this, unfortunately, I'm probably the elder statesman on this call, but I've been doing this for the last 34 years. And initially, I started off on Wall Street. So I was a securities lawyer, really working with a major law firm, investment firms, Goldman Sachs, Kidder Peabody, companies of that nature. And I grew weary of being in New York, particularly on Wall Street, and the hustle and bustle and the cutthroatness of it, and decided to come to Connecticut and work for a firm called Wigan and Dana, where I did continue my securities practice and also did some utilities work and things like that. But I didn't really feel like I was reaching the people working in that capacity. So I decided to go out on my own, start my own law firm. And that worked well, because now actually was reaching people that I could actually help on an individual basis with things as simple as, getting your estate plan in order, doing probate administration, real estate, estate planning, and I represented a number of small businesses. And so did that for a number of years, and not really career related, but somewhere around year 10 of my practice, I said, I'm going back to school. So I decided to go and pursue a PhD at NYU, and I was going through the doctoral program there. Worked out very, very well, except for clashes with the dissertation committee, which didn't work too well. And ultimately decided to leave with a terminal master's. But continued my law practice, and then at some point I was recruited by an African-American woman who was a city attorney here at the city of Bridgeport. And she said, James, I want you to join our team. We really need to colorize this place. So come on in here, and you can bring a little bit more than just color. But I thought that color enough was all she needed. But she actually wanted skill set along with it. But it actually worked out well. So I joined the ranks here, only to find that upon starting, she left and went to Norwalk, ironically. But the beauty of everything, in a way, life is, comes full circle. The person who actually recruited me is Taisha Toms, who actually came back here to Bridgeport and now is city attorney for the city of Bridgeport. And not only that, to my knowledge, she is the first Black in the state to be city attorney for a municipality. And on top of that, she's a woman. Really proud of her. She started Monday. And so I always said to Taisha, look, I was looking forward to working with you. You recruited me to work with you. We were going to do contracts and everything. And now it looks like I'm working for you. But that's okay. So, that's my background. I'm glad to be part of this panel so that we can get the word out that there are people like us in the municipalities and trying to achieve great things for our communities. But I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, James. I appreciate that. I love how it came full circle for you with Attorney Toms. And Karima Mickens, Town Clerk.
Right. Good morning, everyone. I want to just first say thank you for this opportunity. I'm just so excited to be here with all these amazing panelists who are experts in this work. I became town clerk. So I started off in corporate, private sector, was a project manager / program manager for 20 plus years, did a bunch of great things as it related to process improvement and, and things of such in the corporate world. And then I decided I had an opportunity to quote unquote retire. They offered me a great package and I said, you know what, let's go with it. And I did that. And at that time, a good friend of mine had an idea about starting a PAC, which was really about focusing on New Haven and Hamden and educating people about political awareness and things of such. As you guys can hear, my phone keeps ringing. I'm hanging up every single time, but they're not getting it. So you just take it off the hook for a second. Sorry about that. And so did that work, started to get more involved in politics, have always been a public servant and leader in a number of capacities. And then an opportunity presented itself with the town clerk's office. And I thought, wow, what a great way to take my transferable skills, things that I've been doing for years, and bring it into the municipalities. And so I was elected in 2021, just reelected in 2023, and just excited about all the things that we're doing here to make Hamden a better place for everyone.
Thank you. So as I'm listening to everyone, I've read everyone's bios, but as I'm listening to everyone's journey, as you say it out loud, no one started in the anticipation of being where they are now, which I think is just so interesting of how we all ended up in municipal government, because I have some of that same sort of the eclectic background to ending up here. Tell me, as you were navigating kind of that journey, tell me some of those challenges that you've navigated, and how you would like to pass those down to those future employees, those future municipal employees who might have that same background, where they're not coming from this traditional background or may not have started off in municipal government, but will end up here. How did you navigate some of those challenges, just professionally, and now in the position that you sit in? And I can start, whoever would like to start or jump in, we can go from there. I can call someone, however you guys feel most comfortable.
I'm actually happy to start.
Okay, go for it.
Fire. I think one of the, one of the biggest challenges, especially coming from the space of being an activist, I like my mind all automatically goes to organizing. So I'm like, listen, I see the problem. I also see the solution. And then within municipality, things just move a lot slower. There are a lot of different processes and people, and that you have to jump through. So initially, it was really really hard for me to just not be an activist. Like, listen, okay, we know that we need to fix this. You're not fixing it. I'm gonna have to organize everybody. We're gonna have to pull up and make you accountable. But I really had to kind of learn how to do the collaborative part of that, which is the organizing piece, which is important, right? Getting the input from everybody else who's impacted, but also empowering them to know that their voices matter, and that it doesn't necessarily need to be me who's vocalizing for everyone, but organizing in the background and helping people to kind of confidently advocate for themselves and their departments and the initiatives that they'd like to see, push forward. The other thing was that I had to pull in my teaching background. I'm like, okay, you're a teacher. So I had to really start looking at the people that I'm working with that may have implicit biases and whatnot, and see them as students, right? And like, how can I teach you these concepts in a way that makes you also feel included as part of that process, rather than like in a condescending way. We're like, oh, you don't know and you need to know. It's more like, no, like, let me meet you where you're at and provide whatever accommodations necessary to help you get there, and I'm going to coach you along the way. So I had to really take the teaching background and have it kind of be a bit more prominent in my practice than my activism. So I took the organizing, had to leave the activism a little bit, and then bring in some of that teaching stuff. And I that's something that I've found myself kind of navigating with, and it's been helpful.
I like that, Karima mentioned transferable skills, and I think that's what everyone can speak on. Tyron, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's really focusing on my approach of getting things done by doing it differently. That's a model that we have in East Hartford. So I always some of the challenges that I face, I'm used to coming to a private sector and really focusing on building a culture, building commitment versus compliance, right? So for me, I've been approaching this world of municipality and government and the red tape, similar to what Latoya mentioned, is just about really, Tyron, bringing your authentic self to the table. And what does that look like for me is, leveraging my ability to be resilient and adaptable, communicate with everyone effectively, and tailoring my message to different audiences so I can get their buy-in and get their commitment to how we're trying to move the needle forward. Just simple little things, like we just did our first employee town hall, right? That's unheard of, right? I'm used to in a private sector, you have town hall with leadership, and you do training and development, you have wellness programs, you do fun events, you do employee engagement, you do recognition, and trying to bring and change that mindset of how we deliver a better culture for our employees, but also when our employees are happy, our community is going to be happy. How do we tailor our messages to the customer, which is our town residents? How do we deliver a better experience for them, right? So for me, I always try to approach that mindset when I'm trying to implement change or roll out something. All right, Tara, you got to tap into your ability to be resilient, adapt, to relate to people, and also take accountability. Maybe this is not the right approach. Maybe I need to bring in more partners. Maybe I need to lift up other voices. And when I approach rollouts or implementation of different programs or training, things that we're doing in town. But for me, it's really sticking to who I am when it comes to just doing things differently and offering a different lens on how we approach and interact with our employees, how we approach and interact with our residents. And so that's my focus, but that definitely has been a challenge. I'm like, oh, we want to do this. Oh, yes, go ahead and implement this. Everybody's going to buy into it. But it's like, no, Tyrone, you got to take a step back. We got to get that commitment first. It's a different mindset when you think about a municipality and government.
Thank you. Ebony or James?
Sure. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So I think my largest challenge, and I also am well now because I wasn't before, I'm the only African American health director in the state of Connecticut. Previously, it was Lisa Morsi, who is now a deputy commissioner of health. Very good mentor. I think one of my largest challenges is learning that small accomplishments, are great rewards. And I think, when you're working in this business, I think a lot of times you get pressure from either the community, population that you're serving, even sometimes, administration at times, to have these huge outcomes, to show that you've actually accomplished, a task or an item or, made a difference. But I think for me, I had to learn that, small accomplishments are change. And then not only for myself, but also relaying that message to the community at large. That delayed gratification also comes with greater outcomes at times. I think, especially when you're talking about public health, a lot of times people want to see change immediately, right? Because they're in a condition or they're in a situation that they want to change. But, it's baby steps, it's behavior modification. There's a lot that goes into actually changing a condition. And so I think just being transparent, and really showing people that if we do it together, we can actually make a change. And we have to start small because you can't, if you want to change a behavior, it takes 60 days or, it takes a long time. You just can't do something in a week and then know that, this is going to be your lifestyle. So I think that has been one of my largest challenges. And also, greatest things about me changing myself, that it really helped me be a more productive municipality employee, especially coming from, a private sector and research where you have more control over the things that you're doing. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. James or Karima, anything you'd like to say, how you've navigated, your journey as well and some challenges and successes?
I'll jump in here. So yeah, my biggest issue I find, and even to this day, is an issue of credibility. So it's more internalized versus the external forces out there. Coming into work for a municipality after being in a private sector and also being self-employed, the learning curve is tremendous. There's so many aspects to this that I'm still figuring out even a year and a half later. And so you sometimes are at the table and you question whether or not you belong here for multiple reasons. One is that, at the time that I did come in, because Taisha left, I was the sole African-American attorney out of 12 attorneys here. And so you're coming in with the notion of, am I a prop? Am I here just to appease the constituents? And all the answers to that are yes. But at the same time, I do have a certain skill set. And I knew why I was brought here. And knowing that I was brought here, I felt like I had this greater responsibility to be representative and provide certain things for the community, because I do feel a bit protective, knowing that Bridgeport being a larger city, I'll just say minority population is like 70% of the community. The Black community represents 31%. And so a lot of eyes were drawn to me between council, between department heads, et cetera, with, I think, certain expectations. and questions posed to me, and I would find that I don't know the answer. And so I would have to seek guidance from people here. And I was always afraid of how they would interpret it as, well, why don't you know? I mean, you're the next great thing here. That's why we hired you, because everyone said we need one of you guys, and you don't know anything. But what I did find is, by being honest and saying I don't know, I found that everyone in my department was very supportive, and they're willing to help me. And no one actually looked down upon me. They would say, look, James, we've been here for 10 years. You've been here for 10 minutes. So we're not expecting that. And so I had to get beyond that, always question myself of, do I belong? You know, am I here for the wrong reason? And it's not to say the wrong reason, because you need diversity within the department. This institution must reflect this town. So we need us. And I just had to get to the point where I said, it's okay to not know the answer. It's okay to reach out to people, and it's okay to develop mentorships and relationships with people. And so what my way of navigating my insecurity, which is what it was, is I managed to get around and group and find people who were there and very supportive of me, not only within the department, but within city council. I actually have city council members, when someone attacks me, others are defending me because they actually like me, and they're there trying to be supportive, and they know the role that I play and the goals that I'm trying to achieve, which is to make for a better Bridgeport. So that was really something internal for me that I had to work through. And I'm not saying I'm through it yet. I still have my moments where I'm like, wow, I'm a fish out of water here. But that is a challenge that I think I've, for the most part, managed well, and I'm growing with the position. And each day I have more and more comfort at what I do.
Thank you. Thank you for being so open about that. Karima, before I move on to that next question, I would love to hear about you navigating challenges and some of your successes, and what you want to pass along.
Sure. So I wanted to say yes to everything everybody was saying. I was like, yes, yes, yes. I was writing down notes here. But I think the piece that I'll lift up, definitely coming from the private sector, our motto was, if you're going to fail, fail fast. Like, everything moved quickly. You just got it done, and you had so many resources. And I feel like, with the municipalities, there aren't a lot of resources. So the ask is to be transparent and to be compliant and all these things, and yet not necessarily having all of the resources to get it done. But we are creative people. We get it done. And I think for me, the thing that I'd like to lift up is the challenge is, and it's not unique, because even when I worked in corporate, it was being the one of not so many, right? Like being in the spaces where there weren't a lot of people that look like me in leadership positions, and then coming to this role and being a first, right? I don't take pride in that. Like, okay, you're the first African-American Black woman town clerk. And, having someone who had that position for 20 odd years, and the way they show up. I show up with my full experiences, right? I don't hide any parts of me. I bring it all to the table. And for some people, that's difficult, right? But I feel like, I navigate that change. I teach people how to work with me. I'm a great collaborator. So I bring those skills from all the work that I've done in leadership roles. And so I really think, it's important to even in these spaces, in all these spaces, it's about, just making sure that I'm collaborating, and like Latoya said, educating people on, the different experiences and the ways that I do things. But it's all about building. And I leverage those gifts every day in the work that I do.
Thank you for that. And that is a perfect segue into actually two questions. As you assess your current professional status, can you speak about the importance of having a professional environment that fosters an environment of authenticity? And I think James really started to speak to that. I know Tyron spoke to that, and Karima, but can you expand on that? Bring your full self to work, and how important that is, especially in another question I have, the recruitment of a diverse workforce. How does that play into that, and getting people attracted to municipal government? If anyone wants to jump in, you're more than welcome.
Well, since I kind of touched on it, I'll continue. Um, so I find that in order for a municipality to be successful today, I don't really think it's even a choice nowadays about being allowed to bring your full self, to be authentic. I came up, and this is not necessarily answering the question, but I came up into the workforce at a time where in 87 and 90, where there was no thought about me being concerned about culture and anyone caring about whether or not it's conducive to me developing professionally. I didn't really touch on this, but when I graduated and started my first job, I entered a law firm of 500 attorneys that had one Black attorney. My class came in and they brought in 7 attorneys out of 75. So the numbers were paltry. We were just happy to have a job. That's not the case today. We have a bit more power, not as much power as we would like, but we are expecting that we are going to have a nurturing environment and not a situation where they're solely going to bring us in just so they can have some numbers, but they're actually going to do things to commit to us as a group, as a people, to make sure that we develop our skill set, that we have job opportunities, that that there's a commitment to us, not just to say that we checked off a box and we hired X number of people. And so what I'm finding here, at least, with respect to me, that they are committed to us. They're committed to me. And I say us because there's really, when it's us, it's me, and then there's my boss now, who's Taisha. But even prior to her coming on board, I found that people here were really trying to create an environment where I felt comfortable and that they're willing to assist. Now, are there gaps? There are major gaps because they cannot appreciate my background, but they do try to work with me, and every now and then I catch them, and there'll be some things that I find are a bit off color, but they immediately run to my office and say, James, did I say something that I shouldn't have said? And it's like, yes, but your intentions weren't bad. And so we can work through that. And so for me, it really is important that it's not just a numbers thing, because there also is a situation where even though I'm here, they still need to work on those numbers. But I don't want you just checking off the box saying, look how many we have. Because that alone is not enough to get me forward within my career. What are you going to do to make sure that you've put the tools in place for me to grow? And some of it is upon you to make that happen, to going out there and mentoring and finding mentors within the workplace, going beyond just your department. Like, for instance, I have great relationships with city council members. Pretty much every department head, I know them very well. And so I find that for me, the culture kind of extends beyond this department. It actually is within the organization itself, all of the municipality and all the government. And I do feel that they have my back. So I'm not sure I exactly answered the question because I went off on a bit of a tangent here, but I think it is important that we focus on not just let's get the numbers in here, but create a culture within this organization that's conducive to making sure that people of color not only will want to come and work for this organization, but are willing to stay, because retention is also an issue. It's you come in, you find like it's not supportive, you're going to leave. And so that, and that's what I'm finding, is that they're doing what they need to do to make sure that I want to stay here.
Thank you for that. I love your honesty, James. I think a lot of us can agree with what you're saying. Who else? Someone pop in and follow up on James's comment.
Yeah, I'll just add, for me, when I think about culture, it's about intent versus impact, right? Our intent is to diversify our culture, I diversify our employee population pool. But the impact is that once they get here, what tools are we giving them to be successful? How are we fostering a culture of acceptability, right? And I also, what I struggle with at times is thinking about how do at some point you just get tired of always communicating to your peers to make them feel better and make them feel valued. You have to dim your light. And I'm in a space where, we all can shine together, right? We can all shine and bring our authentic selves to the workplace. But it's that fostering that culture and the support at the peer level and at the top level to show, all right, this is what it looks like. This is what your authentic self, this is who Tyron is, and this is what talents and ideals that I bring to an organization, but I need everyone else around me to understand, what does that look like for you as what does it look like for you as a peer that you may not understand my background, you may not understand why I'm here, why these out of the box ideals of me I'm playing out on the table, why I'm strategizing and going to colleges to recruit and going into the community to recruit, because that is my authentic self of reaching back and bringing people along. But I also have to remind myself, Tyron, that once they get here, how can we foster a culture of acceptance? What tools and training and how much money we need to invest in DEI training and culture of accountability. Think about, I always got to think about that, like, right, Tyron, you hired this great candidate, we invested all this money in bringing them here, but we want them to feel value, we want their voice to be heard, but we also don't want to diminish their light, and where they're fact where they get so burned out they don't feel support that they just leave because they're constantly battling the water cooler talk about why they're here because they're Black or Hispanic or a woman. It's like, no, I'm here because my talent brought me here, and my talent, I always remind myself, is that, Tyron, you're at the table, but your talent is going to keep you at that table. And then as long as you bring people along with you, you're doing a good job. And I always got to remind myself that every morning I wake up is like, you deserve to be there because what you bring to the table and your success in other organizations, and like Ebony mentioned, is the small little wins, celebrating those small little wins when it comes to diversifying municipality and being authentic.
Thank you. And I love that you bring that up. I'm going to let others speak, but I just want to say um, talent, being qualified, your skill set, which each of you has spoken about so eloquently. Those are important. Yeah, you have that seat at the table, but you're here for a reason, and that's because you have the skill set, the knowledge, and the experiences to provide professional services and model those in your workplace. So thank you for that. Toya, Karima,
Um,
Evan.
y- yeah, I mean, I'll just add quickly. I think I love what Tyron and James said, and I also think it is also important for us to realize when it is time to go. When we are in a situation that is not going to foster belonging for Black people. And I think that is a reality that we have to also contend with. That some of us might be in a situation where we go into an administration where people are going to have your back and say, you know what, you're not just here to check a box. We really want to support you. We recognize we have a lot of gaps, and we're going to do whatever we can to keep you. And then some of us are going to go into administrations where it's going to be like, you are here to check a box. This is how things are. And you're going to fall in line just like the other Black people that we have here who've been around for a long time that are falling in line. And I think, our role is twofold, right? We can go into a place, we can make the changes. Sometimes our role is going into a space and recognizing that they are not ready for this work, and that our role there is to observe, collect data, and report out what happened in that space to the elected officials, to the community leaders, and to the administration so that they can really rethink how they're going to attack that work in a real way. And so I think that's that other piece of the work that I do want to lift up too, that when it comes to the bringing people in, because sometimes if they're not ready, us bringing our folks in could be more harmful And it's like, if we know we're being harmed and they're not ready, we don't want to bring more people in and put them in a position to be harmed as well. Because, and I think I think, James, you said it about being protective. Like, we're also protective of our community too when we're bringing people in, right? And so I think there's that other element to the work of, there are some spaces that aren't ready, and us helping them is letting them know, you're not ready for this yet. And this is going to have to start on a really deep personal level with you as leaders at the table. Because as much as we deserve to be in these spaces, not every space deserves to have us there. And so I just want to leave it at that.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. And I think that's the reality, of it all. And if Kareem and Ebony don't have anything to say to that particular question, I'd love to hear their follow-up to what kinds of tools and resources need to be set in place. And you as leaders in this current environment, what are some of those tools and resources and support systems that you're setting up for people that we are bringing into our professional work settings, and then specifically municipal government, where traditionally it has not had a lot of diversity in some areas in municipalities?
Well, I can speak on that.
Yep.
I think, so honestly, I didn't have a whole lot to say with the last question, but I did want to just add one sentence or two. But I do think that authenticity breeds an environment where individuals can feel safe. And I just think that that's what I intend to do here in my department. And I know that I can't represent every division in a municipality, but I can represent my space. And so that's what I aim to do while I'm here. But in terms of, what I do in my division, or what I think, we could do as a model, I think, to be honest with you, a lot of municipalities, there's a lot of talent in the space that you have most of the time anyway. And I think that it's just been part of cultures to kind of always want to bring in new talent. And so what I like to do is really do an assessment of the things that I already have, the people that I already have. And really, I mean, when I first came to Hartford, had I not done an assessment, I would not have found an individual that was in one job, unfortunately making like $37,000 a year. And she had a doctorate in public health, right? And she had lots of experience with management. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, the resources were right here. And so I really like to do an assessment and really promote from within, because it really is just, it's easier. First of all, you're really making good use of the resources that you already have. And then for promoting or trying to recruit from outside, I think it's important for us to know that we do have rights, especially as leaders. And we have the ability to change things up and switch things up. Just because it's always been done a certain way doesn't mean that we can't, challenge that notion. And so a lot of times, job descriptions that have been posted since the 1950s, right? I change them, I update them, I add requirements, whether that's a language requirement, whether that's a requirement, to, have experience in an urban setting, or with an urban population, or, there are things that you can do, where you can gear things towards a specific, I don't want to say person, but individual that you want, to add to your division. So I think, those are some of the things you can do for recruitment and promoting. And then I think it's really important to set up a complete, like, post-education regiment for that person, especially for them to be successful. And I think that this is where a lot of municipalities lack. So there's like these initial trainings that they give you, but then it's like, after the trainings are over, then what happens, right? So really, I try to do more like a mentor system, where there's like a veteran staff that doesn't mind being paired up with somebody who is new, and so that they can really just go back and forth and share some ideas. And then it's really important for us to share the wealth when it comes to continued education and conferences. Like, that's really important. I think a lot of times leaders kind of keep that within management for conferences. But if I see a conference that I'm like, this is really amazing, but this is for mental health, you know what? Why don't we send one of the social workers? Because that will benefit your staff. So I think sharing those opportunities, and then also just fostering and making available some field specific memberships in organizations to your staff. I think that's important for us. And that's also important, you know, to make that available to staff. My husband recently was like, I'm thinking about joining the Black Engineers Association. And I was like, you better go ahead and do that. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, that's something that I'm encouraging, because I told him, listen, I'm thinking about joining the NAACP. And he said, I think you should. And he said, I'm thinking about joining this organization. So I think it's important to let people know too, that these organizations are out there for you, you know, to go ahead and utilize. And if there's not one for your specific field, then join someone else who probably feels the same way and create one. Because creating that space, you know, you're giving back, you know, to your community, you're giving back, you know, to the people that need that resource. So that's my 2 cents on that.
No, thank you. I love what you're trying to develop and do and lead folks, so they do have those supports and those systems in place, because I think that's really important. And that's for every employee, right? Because what's best for the most marginalized community or person is best for everyone. So I think building those systems out, benefits everyone along the way. So I thank you for that. Karima, the two questions I was asking is, attracting diverse talent, and those support systems that you want to set in place, as well, through your administration and your time as town clerk.
So thank you for the question. And so, yes, I would say it's really important to make sure. So when I first came into the office, town clerk's office, my team was predominantly white women. That's just what it was. And what we did is we had the ability, as there were some retirements and things of such, is to start looking at other opportunities to bring other people in. And so I'm excited to say, just in this small space, the place that, I have some ownership of and I can lead, is that we now have, the genders change, races changed, and it makes the difference. They see the difference. And I agree wholeheartedly with Ebony about providing the various resources in the education, and we are always learning in my office, right? So we take every opportunity to share things that we've experienced. So I'll just use an example. We have some people, part of one of the roles that we have in here is birth certificates or marriage licenses and things of such. And, there are some names that have more syllables, more letters than others. And I don't think it's intentional, but, sometimes, maybe something was said and it wasn't probably the best thing to be said. And I take those as teachable moments. I use them all. And so I have a really great team. They are very open and just really good people that show up and care about the people in the town. But are the things that we're shaped by our experiences, right? So if no one ever told you, or if you and you're showing up in spaces and you're not sure, if no one tells you that wasn't the right thing to say, or there's a better way, I understand what you might be trying to say, but let's do it differently. And how it could be offensive. I think we do a lot of that. I agree in the training as it relates to not just it's not just set it and forget it, right? It's continuous. It is continuous. We even not outside of just gender and race. We had a person like my first year as town clerk. He's a veteran. He came into the office. He wanted to pay for something, and we didn't have credit cards, right? So that meant that he had to leave the office, go upstairs, go to the ATM, come back downstairs, had to open all these doors. He was in a wheelchair. And when he came back down and he made a comment, he's like, you know what? You all need to get one of those like press button doors. Like, this is ridiculous, right? And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're right. You're bringing something to my attention that I had, I just didn't see it, right? So we did it. We have that push button door. Like we make those adjustments. So it shows up in all kinds of ways, not just in race and gender, but it's in all abilities. And so and we use those and those stories and those lessons to continue to make our team better. And then when I'm in spaces and I get to talk to my peers, I share my stories. I'm always sharing ways and things that happen in my space in hopes that it will help my peers in the spaces that they're in. And I know it makes a difference because I'm seeing it throughout our building.
I love that. I love taking every moment and turning it into a teachable moment. I think having those diverse experiences all around you create a better environment for working environment, but also for the residents, because at the end of the day, that's who we serve. We serve our residents, and they have expectations of us, and we need to make sure that we're showing up as our best selves and our most authentic selves so they can show up and do the same. We have about 10 more minutes left. So I'm going to do one last question. And then we're going to take a couple of questions. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to put in the Q&A while we finish up this one last question. It's about community and how community motivates you, whether it be the community you work in or the community you live in. How does that motivate you each and every day to show up to work, knowing sometimes you are the only, knowing sometimes you are the first, and knowing that you're building something out for our future? How does your community motivate you?
I can go. So I think, and I've been waiting for this question. I think a lot of times when I show up, most people don't think that I'm from the community. So a lot of times people assume that I am from the Middle East, or, they assume that, I'm from somewhere else. So I think that it's important for me to let people know, and also for myself, that I am the community, literally. I was born and raised in New Haven. And I feel like because I share some of the same experiences of the majority of urban, population individuals in this country, I feel that there's a connection. And so I was, the young girl that was in some of those lines with my mom, getting services. We were, going to Salvation Army, getting coats for all the kids. I'm the second oldest of a blended family of 12 children, the oldest of my mother's 7. And so I think that what motivates me is that I am relatable. I'm a part of the community. The community helped raise me. And I think that when you share that relationship, and it's an intimate relationship, it's not going anywhere. It follows you. I think that that's what motivates me to want to make change. And what keeps me here, when times get rough, because it's not always easy sailing, it's a difficult job. And sometimes it's the same people, that the community that you're from, that are like, you're doing a crappy job, you're not living up to our expectations. You're not getting it done. What happened? You're supposed to be our representative when you're in that space, and you're failing. But I think, what keeps motivating me is, I know that I have something to offer, and I know while I'm here. And so as long as I have my goals straight, and I just keep chipping away at it a little bit at a time, I know that I'm making a difference. And so that's what motivates me to, continue doing what I'm doing.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
And I love that. I love that, Ebony. Like, I felt everything that you said, and I feel the same way. Just growing up and having those firsthand experiences and understanding how important community is. I mean, a big part of being a part of the Black community is understanding the concept of village and tribe. And so when we step into these leadership positions, we're doing that as part of that tribe, as part of that village. And so just thinking about my role now, with the Board of Education in West Hartford, and how the community really motivates me to stay in that role and stay strong in that role, with having a difficult campaign where I was able to cross the finish line because of the community, because people came out and voted, because people wrapped their arms around me, because I know that there are parents in our district who look like me, who don't have the capacity to show up to meetings or advocate in ways that they would want to for their kids. Their advocacy is making enough money to keep a roof over their kids' heads and keep food on the table and keep them engaged in activities that are going to get them over the finish line. So just understanding that those are the shoulders that I'm standing on when I go into that space as, a board member, representing our youth and our families. And that not only motivates me, but it's like it re-energizes me. It's like plugging me into the wall, and then I can show up in the space and know that I have all of that energy with me. So it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Anybody else have something they want to end on about being motivated by your community?
I'd just say the same. As I mentioned before, I've been a public servant my entire life. It is what I do. Everything I do is rooted in community. I'm a family person. So when I think of community, it's just an extension of my family. I love it hard. I care for it hard. I try to show up for it always. And that's by making sure that I'm providing access, awareness. When I know, they know, we know. It's a team endeavor. I expect them to hold me accountable. They're the mirror that like Ebony says, they put the mirror up and just remind me I'm clear on what my mission is. I know why I'm here. And it's nothing to do with me. I didn't do it for the money. Everybody knows it wasn't about the money. But it really is about my belief in what I bring to the table. And I just love this. I love hands and I love this community. I love what we're doing in this space. There's a lot of the electors made a decision a couple of years ago and elected the most diverse slate ever. We've been appointing wonderful people, and so we're doing the work. And really, it is the most selfless thing, being a public servant, and I'm here for all of it. I love it.
Thank you, Karima. Thank you. So if no one else has anything to say, we do have a few questions. I know Tyron has answered a few in the chat, but I'll definitely say those questions, and we have a few hands that are up as well. So I'll go back and forth between the hands that are up and the questions. But our first question comes from Christina Gray. She asked, how do we foster municipal leadership among Black seniors? Who can bring unmatched lived experience, but haven't had the opportunities for formal education or experiences? And anyone can take it, and we'll move on, and not everyone has to answer every question.
I can speak to that. I think that, this is a good question. I think that a lot of people are not familiar with the municipal structure. So I think that, could be one of the reasons why people feel that they don't have the opportunity to get involved. But I think, it's part of our responsibility to make sure that people are educated about that system. But there are so many opportunities for, Black seniors to get involved. There are community organizations. We have town halls all the time, that are open to the community. So you can get involved that way. There are plenty of committees in most municipalities that are always looking for individuals to volunteer. I think that that's one thing that people have to understand too, though. Like, if you want to get involved as well, sometimes you have to volunteer first before you get a stipend of some sort. But the opportunities are definitely there, and they are there for income based as well. And there are opportunities within certain divisions as well, if there's an interest, through some of the senior works programs. So sometimes municipal divisions will hire from senior works or maturity works, where we bring in, the elder population, for certain divisions. But there's plenty of opportunity to get involved. I'd say go on your website in your municipality, see what opportunities they have available, and then start reaching out to some of your council people and also some of the leaders that are in your community. Most of us are approachable. You know, if you have questions, then, you know, our doors usually are always open.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'll just add, because to what Ebony said, if you live in Hamden, please see me. We are always looking for people on boards and commissions in the volunteer role. Is such an important role, and it allows for you to better understand how your local government works. So generally, most of that does come out of the town clerk's office or maybe your legislative council office. But as Ebony said, there's a plethora of opportunities to get involved.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'll move on to the next question unless someone else has any other. I have a Vanessa Williams who has her hand up. Can we allow her to talk and ask her question? Do I just hit it? Did you go? Vanessa, take yourself off mute and it looks like you're able to talk. Maybe. There we
Hi,
go.
can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear
Oh,
you.
I am so sorry. I did not realize I had my hand raised.
Oh, do you have a question?
My question was kind of the same like as Faith Palmer's about the authenticity bringing into the workplace. But Tehran already answered it a little bit for us. So yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. No problem. I have a question from Helen. How important was mentorship for you? And do you mentor others?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that one. So for me, mentorship is really important. I still speak to a lot of my mentors. They're my accountability partners. They give me honest feedback, but they're also an advocate for me at those tables where I may not be wanted at or invited to. You know, they also, you know, bring me along. And for me, I also mentor because I think it's important to share my live experiences and be an advocate for people that's entering in spaces that may not want them there or understand why they're there, right? I'm as a human resources director, I'm in a space that is predominantly doesn't look like me, right? I go to all these conferences and part of all these groups where I'm the only male in these spaces and only Black male in these spaces. But for me, I always try to identify someone that I can trust, that can be a thought partner, someone that is going to pick up the phone when needed, and also share my experiences. Also, they can look at me as a partner for me to also shed some light and talk about my experiences and allow feedback. Feedback goes both ways, right? I've identified mentors that they look to me to give them feedback and honest feedback, and then I look to them to give me honest feedback. But I always try to look for that person in the room that is shy or timid, that's sitting in a corner to go over there, extend myself, and open up that invitation to say, hey, you have a trusted partner. How can I help you move along in this culture that we're currently living in today?
Thank you. Thank you for that. I have two more questions. If someone has something they would like to say to that, please feel free, and then I can move on to the last two questions.
Well, I would just like to add to to that. So a couple of months back, I was thrown into a situation where they said, well, Connecticut now requires municipalities to have these landlord-tenant laws in place and commissions and things like that. And so I attended a seminar online. And so I'm a big advocate of providing exposure to people of color for attending seminars, training sessions, anything else to enhance our skills. So I'm listening to this thing and I look and I was like, Cynthia Latour, who's this? And she's one of the panelists, and it turns out she's a city attorney for West Hartford. So I listened to her, and immediately afterwards, I reached out and I said, we need to develop something for Bridgeport. I don't know where to begin. And I'm only here a couple of months in, and they've thrown me into the fire here. And I found that, because you're sitting out there and you're like, where do I go? There's no one else out there like me, at least as far as I'm aware. So, happened to spot her only because I was, engaged in this professional development process. but reached out to her and found her to be friendly, intelligent, helpful, more than willing to share knowledge. And over the course of the last year, developed a really good professional working relationship with her. It's more one-sided with me mainly asking of her, but certainly if she has any needs, I would certainly provide any kind of knowledge that I could share to her. And so I think it is important to really put yourself out there and try to network not only within the organization but also outside the organization, and being exposed to these type of professional groups or seminars, things like that, I think is going to be critical, because you operate as if, for me, it's this is just my island and that's it. And I look around and, I'm talking to my coconut, hoping that it'll talk back to me, but it's not always doing that. And so it's good to really put yourself out there and participate. And hopefully Cynthia's on, but I don't know if she is, but I appreciate what she's done for me and being someone that I can have a sounding board and go to for advice.
Well, thank you. And I concur on Cynthia Latour. She has been a great thought partner and mentor here. I'm lucky enough to work with someone who believes in providing guidance for everyone that enters her office or calls her. So I agree totally, James. I have a question. I will go to Rodney Gray's question, and Faith, I'll come back to yours. Do you see your budget increasing or decreasing for DEI in your towns and cities? And some of us can speak to it, but I guess from your leadership position, what are you doing to help kind of implement or support the DEI efforts in your towns or cities?
So in Hamden, as part, we just opened up our charter. So we have our charter just passed in 2022. And we put a DEI commission together. So I'm hopeful and excited about that. However, I think we still have opportunity. I'm recruiting and doing work for all the boards and commissions, and we haven't done that yet. We haven't done the work to implement the DEI commission. So those are conversations that I'm having with leadership to say, hey, we've done the work to put in a mechanism, right, to allow us to be more intentional around this work. So what's our plan? So I'm hopeful. We're like I said, we've done a lot of great things, but this one's still on the list, and so I'm looking forward to us getting a move on that, and then by doing so, taking the next step to make sure from a budget perspective that we are allocating money for this important work, because there are just so many systems that exist in the municipalities. I mean, we can go on what they are. And I feel like we really just need to set aside money to make sure that we can do the work that's required and the continuous work that's required. So I'm hopeful. We're not 100% there yet, but I'm hopeful.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I just wanted to add one thing to that. So also here in Hartford, we do have an equity coordinator. But I think the good thing about public health is that our 10 essential functions of public health, it actually kind of changed a little bit. And now equity is at the center. So anything that we do, hiring, assessment, policies, we have to look at it from an equity lens, which I think is, extraordinary strides for public health, where everything, we're looking at everything from this equity lens. But I think one important message is that it's a mindset as well. Like, even if your agency doesn't have the funding for maybe, an individual, to come in and be the diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator, that we are there. And so to do our part and make sure that we're looking at things in our divisions and the influence that we have with administrations, and look at that from, bring that equity piece, that diversity piece, that inclusion piece with us when, we're at the table. So I think that's part of our responsibility as well.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you. I'm looking at the time, we're a little past time, so we do have one last question. I think it's a great question to end on, because I think we all, and James talked about it, we all have our own insecurities as Black leaders in our current roles. And the question is, what advice would you give to individuals who may struggle with bringing their authentic self into the workplace? So through your own insecurities, what advice do you have for the next person coming behind you when you're reaching back?
I'll go ahead and answer that first. I'm sorry, y'all. Gotta run to the next thing. I would say like the biggest thing is um, prioritizing yourself, like your sense of psychological safety and belonging, your mental health and all of that. So bringing your authentic self into that space. But when you're feeling some of that insecurity and it's getting to a space where it is unhealthy and it is causing harm, being okay with prioritizing what you need to do to take care of yourself so that you can then reintegrate back into that space in a way that's healthy and meaningful for you. I think we should say goodbye to the days of we're gonna go along to get along. I think utilize the benefits that come with being able to take days off that you need to, being able to access mental health support that you need to, being able to connect with mentors when you need to. And so that's definitely the advice that I would give to those that are coming up into the space. Just take care of yourself, prioritize that, because yes, these jobs, these roles are replaceable, but you as a human being, you are not replaceable. You are invaluable. Your worth, I mean, is priceless. So prioritize that and protect that at all costs.
Thank you, Toya. And I know you have to scoot off, so thank you for those last words.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add, it was just mic drop. I wouldn't even attempt to follow Latoya on that response. That is perfect. Good job. Bravo. Love it.
I agree. I agree. But if anyone has one last thing before I thank you for being here, I would love to hear, just if there's one thing, feel free. If not, if we want a mic drop on Toya, I'm okay with that as well.
I have one thing to add.
Absolutely.
I would say to people coming up behind me is that I have found it a lot harder to assimilate into a situation than just show up as who I am. I mean, you are never going to blend in. I mean, you have been made to stand out. And so I think, it's just easier, to be honest with you, to show up as who you are than, really try to be someone else with expectations from who. And so I think, it has been freeing for me to just show up as who I am and not try so hard to be someone else, because I'm never going to measure up to what they want me to be. I can measure up to who I want myself to be, but not, what someone else wants me to be. So that's the advice I would give to someone.
Thank you, Ebony. I think that's a wonderful advice, is that as we sit here and we are celebrating Black History Month and recognizing people like you guys in leadership, you guys were able to bring your authentic selves to this panel, and it's appreciated, and it needs to be seen that we have these Black leaders throughout our entire state leading the way and wanting to role model and mentor and bring others into these spaces to make it better for our communities at the end of the day and our residents. And I appreciate every single one of you for being here today. Thank you again for your leadership and all you're doing in your own municipalities and around the state. And if there's anything you'd like to say, go for it. But if not, I think we can end here. And again, thank the people, the attendees today for showing up. I know we had some that were directly on, but this was a live stream in West Hartford, and it's available at WHCI's YouTube. So it'll be there archived and played for people to go back in and listen to the wise words that you guys have given us, the knowledge and the experiences. I think it's so important to hear you all. And I thank you. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful day and a wonderful Black History Month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.